Good evening and welcome to the Town of Garner Council Work Session of August 25th, 2026. And it's another beautiful day in Garner. So beautiful because there's not another 90-degree day in sight. We're happy to be here. We'll start by calling the meeting to order and council roll call from the town clerk, please.
Mayor Gupton.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dellinger.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember Singleton.
Here.
Councilmember Stallings.
Here.
Councilmember Vance.
Here.
Thank you. And that brings us to item B on our agenda, which is adoption of the agenda. I'm going to ask council members for a motion in a second.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Vance, second by Mr. Stallings. If there's no discussion, I'll call for a voice vote. All in favor of adopting the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Item C, no presentations this evening, which brings us right along to D, our discussion items. And this is one of our favorite parts, development previews. We don't have to make decisions. We don't have to vote on these. We're just here to get a preview, to learn a little bit about your project, and for you to get a little feedback from council on this. So that being said, let's start with our first one in regards to East Garner Middle School. And our presenter this evening for the staff is our Assistant Planning Director, Ms. Erin Joseph.
Good evening, Mayor.
Take it
Council
away.
members, good to see you all this evening. I'll just give a brief introduction for both of the developer previews for this evening. I don't want to eat into their time too much. So the first developer preview this evening is for East Garner Middle School. The applicant, Sarah Van Every of McAdams, has submitted a general rezoning request on behalf of Wake County Board of Education. They are the property owners. As stated, this is a general district rezoning request. It's 38.98 acres. They are requesting to rezone from light industrial to residential 4. The property is located at 6301 Jones Sausage Road. And so this is the site here. You have the existing middle school, and then the surrounding parcel is the area that the applicant is seeking to rezone. Staff has reviewed the request, being that it is a general rezoning. There are no proffered conditions or site-specific master plan. All applicable standards within the UDO, all permitted uses within the UDO are subject to the general rezoning. And so that has been the primary feedback that staff has provided to the applicant, given council's concern with Tier 1 conditional rezonings. We thought it prudent to let them know that a general rezoning, you may want to modify that application to a conditional rezoning. So far, that's all we have really commented on this application. And so I will pass the microphone to Ms. Van Every and let her preview this request to you all this evening.
Thank you. If you would join us at the podium and identify yourself, name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for having us this evening. Pleasure to be here. For the record, my name is Sarah Van Every with McAdams, 621 Hillsborough Street, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27603. With me tonight, I have Kenneth Haywood with Wake County Public School Systems. I also have Alice Reese and Shane Webster from the school system and Matt Peach from Santec for traffic. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Haywood and we'll begin our presentation. Thank you.
Good to be here again, Mayor, members of the council. Kenneth Haywood with the Howard Stellers Law Firm, 5410 Trinity Road in Raleigh. I want to start a little different than when I was before you, a year or so ago when we were talking about North Garner and the wonderful campus that we discussed at that time. And what I'll share with you is, this is amazing. Let me go back in time. Tonight, we have the opportunity to talk about a school that has its origins in this town in 1936. If any of you have not reviewed the living history of this school, it's available on YouTube. And we start with the Gardner Consolidated School in 1936, a way for citizens in this town who did not earlier have the opportunity to have education be provided education. We now trace our roots from that to now in 2026, now known as East Gardner Magnet Middle School. We're looking at the next chapter. We now have the ability, in collaborating with you, to put competition, track and field, the availability to have state-of-the-art fields for football, soccer for these students. And what I see and what the team here sees is just the next evolution of this wonderful history that I mentioned a minute ago. So we go from 10 acres back in 1936 that had started, where the original school was located, to now what we're talking about today with the acreage that staff had presented to you. So what's our request? We already own, if you could go to the slide showing the rezonings. We already own here what's in yellow, which is R2. That's our main campus, which all of you are familiar with in terms of what we have there. And then we purchased in 2021 what you see in the other color, which is light industrial. But it's all one campus to us. So what we want to do is we now want to be able to build into the purple area, the remaining of our property, fields, and also a new driveway to help with traffic and get it onto our campus. And that's it. And so you're asking yourselves, and staff's already said, and I've heard a lot of this, well, Kenneth, why are you going R2 to R2, general zoning, no conditions? And the answer I've got for each of you is the fact that there is nothing vertical going on to the part that we're asking for rezoning. It is going to be grass, fields, track and fields. At most, there may be a restroom to accommodate that. But normally when we look at conditions, and all of you are familiar with this when we've done this before, is we're building a building, we're building an addition to a building, we're building something that's going vertical, and we have concerns about making sure that you, in looking after the citizens of Gardner, are being, that your questions and their questions are being addressed. Here we've had neighborhood meetings, no one has voiced any issues at all. And the reason, instead of tying this up with a lot of conditions, which aren't relevant to the site, because there's nothing really we can talk about in terms of conditions, we went with a general rezoning. Another reason, Shane Webster's here. Shane is the board's liaison with the alumni group. Many of you may know we have a very active alumni group for the historical purposes that I mentioned a few minutes ago. And so we have an alumni group who is vested with what we're going to do on the campus. We're talking with them, and we want to make sure that we provide every opportunity to what they would like in terms of looking what we're going to do on the R2 site that's already properly zoned. So we need to get the light industrial R2. It's R2 instead of R4, just so you'll know, in terms of staff's presentation. We want to align this to R2 so that as a matter of right, we have the ability to have a school, which is not the way it's currently zoned today when we bought the property in 2021. And so that's why we're just going with what's called a straight rezoning. It's because we're going to have one school campus that's R2. We're going to be building a field. We're going to be building a track. That's what we're building here. And so I didn't see any reason for us to be able to try to start looking at a tier 1 or a tier 2 when we're not putting anything that would normally be subject to some type of condition. I will mention to you in terms of what we are doing in this particular area. As I mentioned, we're going to have a competition track. We're going to have a field for football and soccer and softball enclosed with it, surrounded by the track. So that is what is going on here. We are, just to give you a little teaser, in terms of the site that does not need rezoning, which is where the East Garner Magnet Middle School is today, we're getting rid of all the mobiles. So all the mobiles that are there that are in and around the water tower in those areas, they're going away. That's going to be part of what we're going to be doing when we look to the renovations in terms of the main campus. And so we're here. We want to answer any questions you have about the rezoning or anything else that we can. I will share with each of you that we are very, very early in the design phase. We are not able tonight to necessarily tell you exactly what we're doing on the campus because we are still working with the designers. We're still working with the alumni group to get feedback from them. And so as to that piece, which is not part of the rezoning we're talking about tonight, that's going to be a challenge for us to be able to get into anything other than a very 30,000 foot, maybe 60,000 foot cursory view of what we're going to do there because we're so early in it. But we can generally tell you, what our renovations or what our thought process in terms of the renovations. But what we're really here tonight to talk to you about is what's in green. And what you're going to see in green, which is now heavily wooded, is what's going to turn into the track and the field. You'll see the very bottom there along, let me get my glasses back on so that I can read street names here. Along what I will say, this is a north-south orientation. The loop around the very bottom, that's where we're going to be putting the driveway that I was talking about adjacent to that road. And so that's where we're going to be having this driveway come in to help us with a little bit of our traffic circulation. But other than that driveway there, the rest of the site's going to be, like I said, our track and field. And so I'll turn it back over to Sarah to see if there's anything else she wants to have. She was the original applicant for the school system. That's all I have, but we're going to be able to answer questions that we can about our rezoning request to change this from light industrial into an R2 zoning so that we can then have the school campus developed out to its full potential.
Thank you, Kenneth. I know one of the things that we look at and that staff will look at when rezonings, whether general tier 1 or tier 2 are brought before you, is you're going to compare them to your Garner Forward, the future land use plan and map, understanding that that is an important document for guiding future development in Garner. So I did just want to take a moment that we did look into this and looked at the Garner Forward plan and looked at the character typology, which recommends employment centers. The development change in intensity is a level 3 for areas to enhance. The priority infrastructure and investment area is a tier 2 non-residential, so infill investment. And the Garner Forward framework, it's not within any of the activity center buffers. So understanding that the residential, the R2 zoning district, while it does allow for the school use, understanding that there may be some concern of how that zoning is consistent with the land use plan for employment centers, as we typically don't see a residential zoning in that recommended land use type. However, as Kenneth pointed out, this is not your typical development case that is before you. This is Wake County Public School System. This is the largest employer in Wake County. So sort of by default, right, this is part of that largest employer in Wake County, and by that does, in our perspective, fit that character typology. So I did just sort of want to round that out when we look at the zoning and we're looking at that future land use, that I think that this particular user here does still fit with that. So again, this is really at that 30, 60,000 level foot. This is mainly for the use for the school, which is not currently allowed in the LI district. So if the school use was allowed in the LI district, we wouldn't be here tonight. So we're just here to ask for the rezoning so that we can expand the athletic facilities and continue to provide school services for the next generation of Garner. So with that, we'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. Very informative. We appreciate you coming in to give us a development preview early in the process so we can get our thoughts together and help this move smoothly and help you avoid wasting time and money as we go. Everybody's a big fan of East Garner Middle School. My grandson and granddaughters went there. It has quite a history. With that, we'll start with Mr. Vance for questions. We'll come down and circle back around.
But yes, I heard it mentioned, Ms. Van Avery, that the alumni associations are currently a part of the early planning process and being involved with this whole effort here with this rezoning. Can you name the alumni association?
I'm going to allow Shane Webster, who is the liaison I spoke to, council member. He has the most information about that. I'll let him answer your question, provide any other information you may need.
Good evening, Shane Webster with Wake County Public Schools, 5820 North Beaver Lane, Raleigh. Yes, the Garner Consolidated Alumni Association is the group that we're working with. And, we're in the early stages of design, but we're coordinating schedules for them to participate in our design meetings going forward, probably starting in September.
Okay, the Garner Consolidated is the
Yes.
one you coordinate. Okay. Thank you for answering the question. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Mr. Dellinger.
Yeah, don't really have a question. Just sort of want to make a kind of public for the record on what is allowed by right into R2. So it's kind of amorphous if you're not listing off the things. Single family detached, 2-family dwelling, manufactured homes, group care. Special use permit would allow assembly, civil service and fraternal organizations, also by right community center, school, primary or secondary. Emergency services require special use permit. Cemetery is permitted by right. Religious institution, golf course or country club. Horse stables would require a special use permit. Public parks, passive open space, nature park would be permitted by right. Bed and breakfast would be special use permit. And in-home family, child care, or family care and home care. So I was just reading that for the record, and then minor utility stuff and agriculture. So just trying to give the public an awareness of what this broader general rezoning would allow. I think one of the things that is unique about this is that it's an expansion of an existing facility's capacity and function versus a changeover or a disproportionate use. So, and I think too, just again, we all care about the schools and education and improving them. So those are all sort of factors to weigh in the decision. But I think it's important that we support the expansion of the campus and facilities at our schools if we can. We're not being in the way anyway. That's my only comment.
Okay, Mr. Stallings.
No questions at this time.
Mr. Singleton.
Yes, but before I say that, Mr. Haywood was referencing the history. I went to there when it was East Garner Junior High, and the original building was there. It was called the 8th grade building. It was the H building, which because it was shaped like an H. So I went there with that and the old gym, which we called the barn, because it was old, and the floor was slick. But couple of questions. As we see this on here, the red line goes around the former Alert Cable TV building. Is that part of the rezoning also because the red line's separate, or is that's not y'all's property?
Correct.
Right, so you've got the water tank that is obviously not our
Right,
parcel, but in
right.
terms of the telecommunications, that's not part of the school property. That's not property that we're looking to rezone tonight.
Okay, so that's not included in the rezoning. Okay.
And to your point, in terms of what you're talking about, if I could, in terms of your history of the school, what Shane was telling me is that the first building, Building D, what we used for 1961 is when that was put on this campus.
Called Building D.
Was it D? Yep, Building D was the
D.
first, D as in David,
Okay, D.
was the first building in 1961.
Now, are you talking that building on here in the back? That's still on the campus? Or is that no longer here?
Or on the side,
Toward the
the screen
back?
that we have right now.
We can't see her pointer on our screen.
Okay. That building D right
That's what we
there.
call, when we were there, we called it the ninth grade building. It was the only one, that had the library, had air conditioning, the principal's office had air conditioning. The rest of the school had no air conditioning. So when I hear all this news about kids not having air conditioning, anyway, it's a different world. And the old shop building is there. So there are going to be, this rezoning is not request, has nothing to do with the current campus because the school can go back there. But there will be improvements made to the existing campus in the long-range plan with what we're doing here. This is not just a field, this is for a complete campus update.
Correct. There are, in addition to the field, the main campus itself is going to go through moderate to more than moderate renovation work on some of the buildings that are there. This is not going to be like North Corner where we're tearing everything down, we're moving things around. That's not this one. This is just going to be a renovation of the campus in terms of what's going to be going on in the different buildings, Counselor.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm, and because where you're talking about the field space, or where we used to play, field space, it's not there anymore. I know it's got the mobile units on it. So the improvements that'll be made to the building on the campus, as you stated, the mobile units will disappear. Okay, that's the long range plan. The mobile units will disappear. That's fine. I just need to nod. That's good.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews.
Good presentation. I think it'll be a great improvement. It's great that they're going to do even more later on. And I'm glad you guys took advantage of the early previews like we're doing here. And hope all the developers will pick up on that. It's a great time to have a good casual conversation. And
Or like at Christmas when you think there's a baseball bat under the tree, but you're not quite sure until you open it up. So, right, I agree with that as well. And, you know, I've really, I appreciate the three of us have been doing this for a long time. And every time I come, I really appreciate all your comments and how much you love the town and how much you've supported the school system over the years. So thank you again tonight for that.
looks good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Run back around, Mr. Vance. Thought of anything else?
Yes, going back to the history with Garner Consolidated, are there any structures that are currently historical on the property?
What I understand is this, council member, is that in 1936, it was not on this campus. It was, the first building in this campus was in 61. And so we tie our lineage all the way back to the Garner Consolidated in terms of the student population, but in terms of the actual building, we go, 60 plus years ago in terms of what the first building was. And I don't know whether, how many of the buildings, Building D, for example, is it staying? Yes. So apparently the first building is going to continue to stay with the renovation work that's going to happen.
Will it maintain its historical character? Will it maintain its historical character?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Dellinger?
No further questions.
Mr. Downs?
No question.
Singleton?
No questions.
Wow. Well, thanks for your presentation. There's no decisions we have to make tonight, and there weren't a lot of feedback, so you must be on the right track. Thank you very much, and we'll see you when you come back for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And that takes us to section 1.2 of the agenda, which is a preview, again, another preview for a Tier 2 conditional rezoning request related to 4901 TV Tower Road. And again, our Assistant Planning Director, Ms. Erin Joseph, is going to give us a little background.
Yes, thank you. So again, Ms. Sarah Van Every is the representing the property owner. She represents McAdams firm. This request along TV Tower Road, the site is located at 4901 TV Tower Road. It is a Tier 2 conditional rezoning. They are requesting, the developer is requesting to rezone 2.60 acres from rural agricultural to commercial mixed use conditional for the development of a convenience store with fuel sales. The applicant has submitted their first round of submittal items. That includes the site-specific master plan, as well as a list of written conditions and a narrow list of permitted uses within the conditional district. What you have on the screen is what they have submitted thus far for the master plan. So you can see building layout, and the parking, stormwater control measure, and some landscaping features. So to date, staff has provided one round of comments. Primarily, the comments centered on ensuring that the conditions are aligned with the Garner Forward Comprehensive Plan and that any conditions proffered are above minimum standards of the UDO. A commitment to open space, given that non-residential development is no longer required to commit to open space. So we've asked them to commit to that. Also, there are several conditions that deviate from the minimum standards within the UDO. With a Tier 2 conditional rezoning, an applicant can modify dimensional standards as long as there is an alternative means of compliance that is in line with the spirit of the Unified Development Ordinance. So we've made several comments for them to address, such as the tree preservation minimum requirement, perimeter buffers. They have requested to reduce the perimeter buffer, reduce the percentage of tree preservation area. Engineering made a comment pertaining to the required road frontage improvements, and that a cul-de-sac or another turnaround will be required on TV Tower Road to accommodate a fire apparatus. So those are the like I said, the primary comments that staff has provided to the applicant at this time. We have not received their second submittal, so we will allow them to speak to what they are working on currently. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Worth Mills with Longleaf Law Partners. I'll give Sarah a little bit of a break, but I'm here on behalf of Impeccable Development, who is the rezoning applicant for this case. Daniel Hernandez and Kevin Sanders are here as members of Impeccable. Also with our team this evening, Sarah Van Every with McAdams, and Reinald Stevenson with DRMP. As Ms. Joseph mentioned, this is a Tier 2 rezoning request to rezone this 2.6 acres to CMX conditional to facilitate a convenience store with fuel sales use. So as you can see here, the two properties, 4901 TV Tower Road and 0 Highway 70, make up 2.6 acres located at the intersection of TV Tower Road and Highway 70. There's an existing single-family home on the 4901 TV Tower Road parcel today. Across TV Tower Road is the Camping World business. Garner Business Park is to our north on the opposite side of 70, and then farther south, off the screen is the WRAL TV transmitter tower. So these two properties are near the eastern limits of Garner's E2J. This will be sort of the eastern gateway into Garner. The purple shaded areas that you see on the right-hand side are part of Clayton's E2J. The corporate limits are a little bit smaller, as you can see in the red shaded areas, but Camping World and Garner Business Park are currently within the town's limits. Phase 2 of the complete I-540 project will change this area significantly. This slide shows the proposed work in this area, 540 shown horizontally. Our property is just at the southern tip of the Highway 70 improvements, which have sort of an orange shade to them. This completion of I-540 is going to bring more cars, more people into this area, and increase the need for fueling station in this area. So this area itself has been transformed with the development of the Garner Business Park. As you can see on the progression of aerial photos on the screen, the proposed fueling station here will serve not only those future cars and trips, it will also serve these employees that now frequent Garner Business Park every day. This slide, shows the topography of the site. I wanted to highlight this. It's sort of a key challenge within designing this site and is driving some of the modifications to the UDO. So the site itself falls towards the middle from both the east and west. And some prior work along 70 is causing drainage issues to originate on the north side of 70, flow over to our site, and then sort of remain there as standing water until it slowly releases to the south. So as part of our concept plan, we are trying to improve those existing drainage conditions. The two properties are currently zoned RA. The properties to our south and to our east are zoned RA as well. Camping World is zoned CMX conditional. Garner Business Park is zoned a mix of LI conditional, and HI conditional. And the property sort of to our southwest, part of that WRAL TV transmitter tower, that property is zoned Highway District. That is part of the Wake County zoning. But there are lots of intense zoning districts in this area, whether it's Town of Garner or Wake County. So the four policy maps shown on the screen, I think, highlight the town's recommendations for a convenience store fueling station in this area. The top left is the character typology map, which designates these properties as employment area. A gas station near the future Highway 70 and I-540 interchange can help to serve those employment uses and those employees. The development change and intensity map on the top right designates these properties as level 3 areas to enhance. That designation recommends strategic infill development to complement established employee hubs. With Garner Business Park to our north, I think that this rezoning meets that description. And then lastly, the framework map in the bottom right, we have access off of both TV Tower Road and Highway 70 TV Tower, exiting onto there to get onto 70 would be full movement, and then the driveway on 70 would be right in, right out. Those drainage and topographic issues that I mentioned earlier are causing us to have to grade within a portion of the required buffer, specifically to those RA zone properties, pretty much directly south of the parking lot. We have created that variable width buffer in the southeast corner, as opposed to just a straight line 45-foot wide buffer that the UDO would otherwise require. And you can see some of that highlighted here between what the buffer by code would require versus what our proposed variable buffer width would require. The site is almost fully wooded today. The site is surrounded by off-site forest, which also provides for meaningful buffers to those adjacent properties. And then looking at TV Tower Road, today it is an unimproved road that provides access to this site, Camping World, and to the transmitter tower. Ideally, Impeccable would improve that portion of TV Tower up to its proposed driveway entrance, while also ensuring that there is sufficient turnaround for those emergency vehicles. We'll continue to work with staff on that condition language and making sure that this is a safe entrance and exit for not only our patrons, but other folks as well. And then on the zoning condition front, we have offered a permitted use table. Although again, the goal here is to develop that fueling station. We've prohibited tobacco and vape shops. The rest of our conditions to date really speak to that UDO relief sought due to the topographic and drainage challenges that are occurring on it today, which include 10% of the site reserving that as tree canopy, street yard encroachments for our trash container and parking spaces along TV Tower Road, and then those grading impacts into the buffers. And we are looking to offer architectural conditions as we continue to flesh out this rezoning with staff. So thank you for allowing us to present this case. Our team's here to answer any questions, and we look forward to continuing to refine this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a lot of good information, a lot of good logic about this spot and about this potential use. I may go out on a limb and echo a common concern or a common thought from our council members, is the more that we see big highways and big infrastructure coming along, and the more we see that people are eager to live here and work here, the higher opinion we have of our property that's out there. And our expectations are increased, and we expect more, and we ask for more every time we can think of something that could be a little bit better, because each of these projects will be with us a long time. And while this one makes a lot of sense, I like you turning around and other things, I can't help but think, what else could we accomplish with it in addition to what you're doing here? For example, to borrow a page from Mr. Singleton's playbook, where are the open fields for the kids to play on? And you might say, well, what kids? There's no neighborhood. But I'm thinking about when Mom was over there picking out a new RV next door, maybe Dad and the kids come over here to get a snack, and they've got 30 minutes or 2 hours to kill. What are the chances that you could do something that would more enhance their experience or their use over here in terms of little picnic areas nearby that they can sit outside? And I also seem to have acquired a personal distaste for what I'm considering mud holes. These open, only one use stormwater control measures. These all just turn out, unless they're carefully designed, they turn out to be just an eyesore and a mud hole. And I have talked to some of our developer friends, property owner friends, who said they were reluctant to build the underground structure, but once they did, they realized the maintenance was so much less, and it gave them more parking and more usable space, or in this case, more perhaps open area, a play area, dog park for your travelers. I'm just trying to think, what else could you possibly do that would be of value to our residents and our travelers who might be our future residents? So I'm just planting that seed. And I'm sorry if I stole your playground concept.
No, sir.
Just reinforce. I've heard it. I can almost, but you can say it again when it comes back to you. Mr. Matthews, questions, comments?
Picked out a good location, obviously, with the loop coming through there. And as I'm reflecting, I think the nearest fueling stations up there at Guy Road is somewhere on that corner up on the right. And so you got a great location. I like the concept you've got here and the layout. I'm kind of with the mayor on his mud hole over there, because, you know, that can be a mud hole. 'Cause here lately, it's what all of them are anyway. It's just a hole out there and people throwing stuff in. So if that could be something to consider, is to modify it to some way where it'd be a little bit more useful and it would look good. That would kind of be my only concern with it. But other than that, the project looks good.
Mr. Singleton.
Yes, to follow up on the buffer, it's just roughly the same amount of square feet. So with the buffer, whether it be the pink buffer or the green buffer, that's undisturbed buffer. Or is that would be planted buffer? It's going to be, the site would be cleared where the trees are, and that would be a new type of buffer through plantings.
Yeah, the green area is where we're proposing undisturbed buffers.
Okay, and so that's what the pink area was too then, right? Both of them were undisturbed, or?
Yes.
Okay. So that leaves a little area where the retention pond is, and some flat area just based off this south of the retention pond. There's a little flat area there. I'm assuming that's what that is, flat on what the topography is.
Right, I can take you back there too, and obviously we'll have to grade this site, but
Right.
yeah, the biggest concerns are, sorry, did I go too far?
Gotcha. I see I see more from that one. I didn't go back.
Yeah.
I didn't go back. I went the other way.
Where the parking lot,
on the site. So I definitely wanted to thank you for that. I did have a question for Ms. Joseph. I know that she had pulled up in the staff presentation some recommendations, as I understand that staff had made to the applicant. If I can see those.
I'll have to exit out of their
yeah,
presentation.
it's fine.
I guess my question is, with the conversation being had between staff and the applicant, is there any of these things that staff have recommended that you plan on incorporating into the final product?
So we've got to continue to work through the road frontage improvements and the scope of that on TV Tower. That'll certainly be a part of future zoning conditions. And then, so we have modified our tree preservation and perimeter buffer zoning conditions because we knew that we needed that relief. And we haven't done as much of that sort of collaboration with staff yet because I think we wanted to have this conversation first. I think our goal moving forward, we understand that we need the relief. How do we get some alternative means of compliance that speaks to the intent of the code? So I think that's the next step for us as we continue to, build out these zoning conditions a little bit more.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger.
Yes. The first thing is, thanks for doing the tier 2. The concern I have is if you're going to do fuel sales and convenience, you need to pare down your permitted uses to reflect the end product. There's a long list of permitted uses, and y'all have not stricken in any or many of those. Is that correct? I'm seeing vehicle sales, veterinary clinic. So are you planning
I can't speak to how many we've stricken, but I would agree it is a pretty broad list of uses.
Okay. And that just goes back to sort of highest and best use and highest tax value, and fuel sales and convenience stores are high value properties, good revenue generating properties. So I think that'd just be another practice with sitting with staff to make sure you're paring down to the ultimate, what the project is. With regards to it's a very topographically challenging piece of property. It looks like you're bringing in a lot of water from other parcels as well. Is that the case?
I might need Aaron. Could you take us back to my presentation, please?
Absolutely.
I can pull back up that topo map. Yeah, you can see it there. So the high points of the site are on its eastern and western buffers, and everything falls inward to that standing water pit that you see on the screen.
And so you've got also the parcels that are to the south draining into this parcel?
No, so the water is draining from the north across 70. And you can see that line there across in the head wall on the north side. So that water is coming from the north and then running through our site to our southern neighbor.
You're taking on more water than you're pushing out for sure. So that gives me a little, on the stormwater, you have some challenges there. I think under normal circumstances, I would be 100% gung-ho on underground. I'd be a little bit more flexible. However, and you've got some it's a challenging piece of property. But I would look at a model that does have the underground. Again, I understand you're taking a lot more water than you're shedding. And I say that with looking at the model of being able to possibly increase the footprint of a building by adding more parking or more pumps or finding a way to offset that and getting more usable space out of the parcel. Like I said, I understand with the buffer, it's very constrained on that eastern part of the parcel. So that would be my feedback, is kind of look at a scenario with that and see if the numbers work out and maybe get a larger footprint of a building or something like that. Last question I have is the applicant going to develop the site, or are they a broker?
I believe that they would develop the site.
Okay, I'll take that answer.
Well, I'll say yes. I guess
They're back there.
we are.
nodding. You're going to develop the site. Okay, that's what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so I say that just that'll help with the winnowing down of the uses. We don't want to be in a situation where people come in, they get a lot of uses, and they flip the property and end up with something else, and throw the site plan in the trash. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vance.
No questions?
Okay, any other questions you thought of in the meantime? All right, well, thank you very much, and if there's anything to be learned, is listen to staff, and if they make a suggestion, we expect you to do it. They know what to do, but good luck with your project. I think you're doing.
Gave you an update on some of the progress that had been made toward the master development agreement with the Downtown Opportunity Site, and we had told you we would come back at the end of the month to provide you yet another update. We are joined online tonight, I believe, by our partners at LMG and DFI. They were logging in earlier, and there was some communication that I will take full responsibility for having calls by sending a link that we had to resend to them. So we hope that they are on with us tonight. So can I check, Peter, are you on tonight with us? Or Connor?
Sorry, I had to find the unmute button. Peter's on.
Okay. All right, Peter. Thank you. Just want to make sure you were there. All right. So Ms. Jones and I, we're going to provide an update tonight. In your packet, Ms. Jones provided a memo and a summary of the MDA. What we wanted to mention to you tonight, or share with you tonight, when we were here in August the 4th, we had several things that we had accomplished. We had reviewed the alternative financial and ownership structures to make sure we had the best model going forward. We did that, and our partners at DFI agreed that we were doing the best structure for this that we could. We developed a model for operational maintenance of the parking deck and a strategy for long-term infrastructure maintenance, and then validated some of the key components of the master development deal and the MDA with DFI. There were several things that we told you at the time that we still had to do some work on. So we're currently working through the final language now, but the first several items: confirming the structure of the parking lease agreement, developing a parking lease model that meets regulatory statutory requirements, and finalizing a revenue generation model. All those are being finalized now, and that the language that will be in the final MDA will have those taken care of. Generally, the structure that we're working on is to take the proceeds from the sale of the property and keep those in reserves so that we have a reserve to build on for future structural maintenance of the parking deck that the town will own, and then the rent payments that will be made. Right now, we're planning to start in the third year. Those rent payments from LMG would go into that reserve. We would build that reserve over time, so such time that the town would need to make any kind of structural repairs or repairs beyond general maintenance to the parking structure, we have a revenue stream in place. And I think this is an important part of the plan, because we aren't always able to structure those kind of maintenance cost ahead of time. And with this project, we're able to plan ahead for that. Told you earlier, we need to determine the structure of the condominium model. We're still working on that, but what we've done is actually made the condominium documents a part of the required things that would need to be done before the actual closing. So rather than having to have the final structure of those documents done before you sign the MDA, we're going to be working on those simultaneously. And so you'll see those as a condition precedent for closing. One of the things that we said we had not finalized last time was evaluating affordable housing options. I'm going to turn this over to Peter in a few moments to address that. We also mentioned incorporating language for the Blue Ridge affordable tax loophole. That language has been provided by Attorney Jones, and it is in the draft that we are working on and has been agreed to by LMG. And then the last thing that we mentioned was creating a timeline for key project milestones. So I'll come back to the timeline in a moment, but I wanted to turn this over to Peter now, and he was going to share some thoughts on commitments and strategies around affordable housing. So Peter, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. I'm not sure, I promise I'm not being rude, but I don't think I can turn my camera on. So trust me, I'm here. We are well on our way into the planning and getting towards the final sort of closing process on the project. And as we've discussed in the past, we had previously made a commitment to workforce and affordable with a small a units in the building. And we want to make sure that we're very, very deliberate and explicit about what we're committing to. We think we can increase the previous commitment that we made so that we would have 15% of our units as affordable, meaning that 10% of them, and Connor, kick me if I get the numbers wrong here, but with the numbers we've run through as recently as this afternoon, was that 10% of the units would be at 80% of AMI and 5% of the units would be at 60% of AMI. I'll pause for a second. Connor, can you confirm?
That is correct. I would leave it at 10 units and 5 units because it's a 102 unit project, but that's essentially what we got to.
Okay. So hopefully that addresses some questions that came up the last time we were here. We also want to talk about more qualitative approaches to that. Connor, if you want to spend a minute talking about what you had documented the other day in terms of how we might approach city employees, community center, and the like.
Yeah. I mean, I think from a qualitative standpoint, this project is 91% studios and 1 bedrooms. So naturally, we're targeting that workforce audience. I think part of the reason Peter probably likes me to speak towards this is I kind of would fit into that realm of who we're probably targeting with this project. You know, we're looking at younger individuals, people in the workforce, town employees, police officers, nurses, teachers, et cetera. And kind of our goal would be to establish a preferred employer program and local workforce programs that offer incentives like waived application fees and other minor incentives to those individuals like myself, to where those items go a long way, as well as connecting with the local retail there on Main Street. We'd have a leg up on any other residential competition from that standpoint as well. So there'd be obvious synergies there in trying to connect with local businesses, not just their workforce, but also from a retail standpoint, trying to offer incentives to get the customers of those retail opportunities into our doors and our tenants into theirs as well. There'd be a lot of good opportunities for overlap as well. And then, Peter, you can speak to anything that we've done in Kannapolis or Gastonia in the past that's been successful from that same standpoint.
Well, it's not a unique request from a town or a city one way or the other. We do it everywhere now. So this is right down the center of the plate for LMG. It is why we design the projects the way we design them. It's why our mixes are what they are, because we want to continue to create the naturally occurring affordable housing. And I know it was important to you all that we make a commitment to specific numbers, and so we wanted to make sure we did that today. So with that, John, I'll give it back to you unless there was something else specific you wanted us to address.
Thank you, Peter. I'll pause here, though, before we go forward and just see if council has any questions or comments about the housing component or anything else that you wanted to directly ask LMG, and we can circle back around to them at the end as well. But I'll pause here and see if council has questions for you specifically about your housing comments.
Hey, thank you. A lot of good information, Peter and Connor. Seems like we've been working on this one for a long time. We've been through COVID, been through inflation, rate changes. Glad to see we're still working. I'll start with Mr. Vance this time and come down the row for questions or comments.
I have no specific questions about the housing component. However, I'm thinking about the major infrastructure improvements that will be necessary for this particular project. Are we too early in the process to even consider those now within the development agreement?
No significant infrastructure that is needed for the project. Of course, we are talking about the parking structure, but water, sewer, road system, some of the key things that we typically would be thinking about are already in place. As we designed the rec center, those were thought of in advance.
Is it possible to start looking at grants and other financial support that can help drive the cost down for this particular project?
I think, well, the developers team are doing their own funding for that. I don't know that we would particularly be involved with the grant process for that, but I think we can have discussions with council if in the future about the financial commitment that council is making towards the parking structure.
Or any other partnerships that could possibly be
Yes, sir.
part of it?
Will do.
That's all I have.
John, don't discourage them if they want to give us money.
Yes, Peter.
Yeah, we talked earlier today about the fun of spending someone else's money whenever possible. Mr. Dellinger.
I don't have any questions right now. I'll let you get through the whole presentation. This wasn't part of, I'll wait till you get done with the whole thing. I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
And this is new information, so I need to process it in context of everything else. So I'll come back.
All right.
Mr. Stalin.
Yes. My first initial question was, there always an affordable housing element to this project?
The very first iteration of this project, there was not. It was earlier than council was really focusing on affordable housing. When we came back to, I think, our third iteration, but the second one that we actually had a development agreement on, it was a much smaller project. It was a 24-unit project, and LMG had committed 3 units of that to be at 80%.
Okay, and when we're referencing, follow-up question, when we're referencing AMI, are we using the Raleigh-Cary?
Yes, sir. We don't have any other standard to use. We understand that council would like us to think differently about that, but because we need a common definition that everyone can use, that is what is being used here.
So what's being follow-up? So what's being offered up is 80% and 60% of Raleigh-Cary MSAs?
Yes, sir.
AMI?
Yes, sir.
I have more questions, but I'll pass it.
Okay, Mr. Singleton.
Just to clarify, I know we're supposed to make available 102 parking spaces. How many units again are we talking about? I cannot remember. And
102,
so
correct,
there's 102
Peter?
to match the number of spaces?
Yes, sir. One
Okay.
per.
I couldn't remember if that was the case or not. That's why I wanted to ask. And we talked about 10% at 80 AMI and 5% at 60% AMI. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Matthews.
No questions this time.
Okay, let's start back over Mr. Vance.
No further questions.
Mr. Dellinger.
Oh, are we at question time?
No, sir. We do have more
okay.
presentation. That was just seeing if there was any questions
Okay.
specifically about the housing, Mayor, if that's okay.
I do want to, Gray, since Gray mentioned the number of spaces. So how many spaces would be in the deck and how many are being provided, like are the Main Street additions being counted towards the 102?
The 102 would be counting just ones in the new development, but we're counting the new ones that will be built on Main Street as providing enough overall parking to make the project viable.
Okay. And how many of the 102 are for the residents and how many are for the public?
There's 134, Peter, Connor, do we have that correct?
Yes.
134 total spaces. And LMG would be paying for a permit to use 102 of those, but they do not have to be specifically reserved, but available for that. So the difference there would be available to the public, but the spaces could be used by the public if there's not a need by a resident at that time. So, yeah.
I didn't understand that at all.
Okay. So Peter, can you share anything about your permit concept for your parking?
Rephrase the question, please. I'm sorry. I'm a little lost.
So
My initial question was for the, let's just talk about the deck. Are those for the public or are those for residents, or I guess the next part, or are they for both?
So the concept here is there for both. This is a public parking garage. And I think our advice is take care, do not reserve spaces for us, but reserve hunting licenses essentially. And the reason you want to do that is since people come and go, you will have more capacity during the day and early evenings than you would have late at night. That's going to do you some good on the community center. At the same time, it will also help you with your Department of Insurance review and defending the fact that it is in fact a public garage. So what we're looking for with 102 units, most of which are studios and one bedrooms, we're not going to need a whole lot more parking than that, and we will never be 100% full. There will never be a day when every unit in this building is full. There will always be a couple available. So right around 100, 102 permits is what we're going to need. And those would be permits to come into the garage and look for a parking space. What we'll have to do together is carefully manage how much capacity you give out to others so that between the two, we're never over capacity. But, the worst kept secret in the world is parking garages are just like airplane seats. They tend to be oversold a little bit because not everybody shows up every day. So we're working through that now on the management side. And I think that detail as we get through construction is going to be probably another conversation we're going to want to have together.
Yeah, because I'm still sort of struggling, but because I'm thinking if there's public access, does that not impact the appeal of the units to know you don't have dedicated parking right next to where you live? And I guess not my area of experience. I'm not sure how this works in other places with regards to parking being available as an amenity, which is really kind of what I typically think of having a condo and apartment with a deck, that the parking is an amenity. But what we're saying is it's public, but they're reserved. But I'm going to let y'all continue, and I'll try to figure
We'll follow up. We understand your question.
Okay.
Okay. So we got a little bit more, and then we can come back around for general questions, if that's okay, Mayor. We discussed the timeline at the last time that we were together. So LMG has updated a timeline that we have here, starting with month 0, which would be whenever we sign the MDA. There's about 7 months worth of permitting, public hearing that will need to be done to transition the property, and some other steps. So it's about a 7-month project time for the pre-development, and then you see a construction timeline there of being a little over 2 years. So this is being provided just as in a response to the question that was asked when we were here in February, and this timeline will be a part of our MDA when we bring it back to you. And then I'll turn it over to Ms. Jones, who will summarize some of the materials that she provided in the packet for you about how we get to the closure of all of the steps that have to go into this.
Thank you, John. So as I outlined in the memo and what's in your agenda packet is really our summer legal intern helped to distill some 70 pages of documents we have right now, with not including the condominium documents, into 15 pages of kinds of the terms and things. But the basic structure is the town, once the pre-development is through, and that's getting their financing, permitting, the site plan, all of that approved, is the town will subdivide the rec center parcel into 2. So that corner will be subdivided off. That portion of the property will be conveyed to LMG by private sale. Now, this private sale, under the downtown development statutes, and we will have to have council will have to have a public hearing before we can actually convey the property. Then once they own that portion of the property, they will then construct the parking garage. Once it's completed, the town will purchase the parking garage or deck as a condominium unit back with a capped price of $5.5 million. So that is less than what they anticipate the construction costs for the parking garage portion of the project to be. That keeps us in line with what a downtown development project can be under state law. It has to be where the private partner spends more than 51% of the total cost of the project. And then the town, as along with the question that was asked earlier, the town will lease spaces in the parking garage to LMG for use by residential tenants. Now, these will be non-exclusive use, so it's not like each studio or apartment unit will be assigned a spot. There will be no assigned spots in this deck. There, to answer somewhat of the amenity issue, there may, and we're working through this, we could have a structure where each of the residents gets a parking permit. So after the rec center closes in the evening, there would be no more public parking, and that would essentially guarantee those residential units a space for overnight parking. This also may prevent some problems other municipalities have with unhoused persons living in cars in parking decks. If we have a residential permitting system, there is a way to control some of the nuisance activities that you see in some parking decks that occur. So along with the lease of those units, LMG will handle the daily operation of the parking garage. That's cleaning up trash in there, dealing with any potential parking disputes or those kinds of issues. Just your sort of day-to-day maintenance to make sure that the lights are operating in it, those kinds of things. But the town, as the owner of the parking structure, will be responsible for long-term maintenance and any large repairs of the parking garage that will be needed in the future. And the hope is that the lease amount that's being charged to LMG will help create that capital fund to be able to do, or at least contribute to that long-term maintenance or repair or replacement issue that might come in the future. The LMG folks can talk more about it, but I mean, this parking structure should last, what is it, like 50 years. So it can take some time to build up that reserve for those kinds of issues. So that's the basic structure of the legal documents that will need to be executed to make this downtown development project actually work and in compliance with state law.
And so then the next action that we'll be asking council for, Ms. Jones and I were very optimistic recently when we updated you that in the pending agenda that Ms. Miller will cover later tonight, you'll see a placeholder for this being on the September 15th agenda. We believe that it will take us longer than that to finalize the documents and get them prepared for the agenda packet. So we're targeting the October 6th agenda now. And so whenever council does take action, we'd be asking you to adopt a resolution approving the master development agreement and authorize the manager to agree to execute the agreement and other documents specifically referenced or reasonably necessary for the implementation of the agreement. And then, as Ms. Jones mentioned, we would also be working to schedule the public hearing that will be required for the conveyance of the parcel to LMG. So that's what we have for you tonight. Mayor, we're happy to address any additional questions that council had, and the LMG team is on as well.
Okay, thank you, John. We definitely have time for some more questions. We also know that we don't have to make a decision tonight. There's nothing to be voted on. This was, in effect, a preview, giving us some good information. And there's plenty of time to be asking individual questions, or one at a time or four at a time, of our staff, of our development partner, LMG. So let's take advantage of that over the next few weeks. Make sure we're addressing many of the issues that you brought up. They're very significant. With that being in mind, we'll take another round of questions, and let's start again with Mr. Vance and run down and see if we have some questions for our presenters here this evening.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Dellinger?
Yeah, so with regards to, there are no rezonings required for them to move forward. There is, and when will that be in the timeline?
I'm sorry, there is no rezoning required.
You were not. Okay.
No.
There was a paragraph in the lease agreement that said rent developer shall be responsible to the town for rent payments for the leased spaces in money annually at the start of each permit year. Town, in its sole discretion, reserves right to amend, alter, or change the rent, provided the new rent shall not exceed the parking rates charged to other parking users in the town, which I thought was interesting, but also have we not specified what that rent is and what the schedule is? I didn't see any dollar figures.
So there will be a schedule that is in the master development agreement. Are you reading from Ms. Jones's document that's in your packet?
Yes.
So that is a summary. I'll let Ms. Jones provide additional commentary there.
So yes, an attachment to the master development agreement will be this lease agreement. It won't be executed until we know that there's delivery of, that the deck's occupiable for parking purposes. We're still working out what that market rate is, but that language preserves the ability, should the town start charging for parking elsewhere in the town, the opportunity to make it at the same rates.
Right. I guess my question is, how much are we getting paid in rent for the?
So Connor, do you have the revised lease schedule in front of you?
I can pull up the latest numbers, but I know that it's all still redlined from our end on, waiting for your all's responses. But in the first 2 years during lease up was agreed that there would be none. And then starting in year 3 starts at $25 per permit, obviously up to 102. So that's estimated to be about $30,000 a year. And then from there it continues to escalate up through year 50.
Thank you.
So
Go
sorry,
ahead.
John, we still have to work the details out about the lease rate, because anything longer than 10 years has to be treated like it's a sale of the property. So we have to make sure that we're getting a market rate for that. So there need to be some other parking studies done. The unfortunate thing for Garner is we don't have any other paid public parking right now. So we don't have an established rate for what we believe the market is in this area. So because we have to structure that lease to meet the state requirements that we are leasing the property at a market rate, or to look at one of the exceptions for those kinds of arrangements. But it's treated like we're selling the property, even though we're not selling the property.
So again, we'll have a final schedule that'll be in the master development agreement. It's very similar to the way the schedule was structured in the original master development agreement that I know only part of the current council was a part of, but it was a similar schedule where we agreed the first few years during lease up, there would not be a payment, and the lease payments would start in year 3.
And why is that?
To provide an opportunity while not all the spaces are being used during lease up. So that was a structure that we had agreed upon in the original lease.
For 3 years, no payment? How long?
2 years. We get the first payment starts in the 3rd year.
Yep.
I don't understand that. I mean, if we're putting in $5 million, why would we delay getting paid for the operation of the deck?
Because we're also purchasing it back at less than it's going to cost to build. So we're getting the parking at a discount. This is part of, you can consider this 2 years part of the compensation and paying for the deck.
It's gonna be hard for this to come back into, because a lot of this is not in here, and we're being asked for it to come back and vote on it. And I have another question too. What is the estimated annual maintenance cost for a parking deck?
Again, the town has not operated one, so we don't know our costs, but we have to determine that before we can finalize all these documents. That's part of the reason you're not getting a copy of this tonight. We have some work to do on some of the documents still.
Okay. Oh, that's fair. Okay.
We just wanted to provide you an update on the structural parts that had progressed, and make sure you had the update on the housing commitment, because that was one of the big outstanding items.
And the last question I have is just the contribution that the town's making for the parking deck, and this is a question for LMG. Is that the only functional way the town can contribute to the capital stack to make the project work? Or is there a possibility for some cash and a zero interest loan?
We cannot do a zero interest loan.
Or a market rate loan that's slightly below
Well,
market
right.
rate? I mean, I'm just trying to see, are there other ways we can still get this done that make the numbers work for you? Or is this really the only way? Because there's sort of a subsidy on top of the construction of the deck on our part for not recouping rent for a few years. So then is this the only structure that works for you all?
Well, I think before Peter answers that, I also mentioned that we ran similar questions with our partners at DFI, and I know Marcia Parrott was going to be on as well tonight, and I've not introduced her, but we did run through that. That was part of that due diligence work we've done. We ran a couple of different scenarios of how we could participate, and so there are some limitations on what we're able to do by statute to do that. Peter can still answer your question as you ask it of him, but there's some limitations even beyond what Peter's answer may be that we have run through with DFI, and we don't believe that there's another structure that would work. Peter, anything you'd like to add to that, or Marcia?
I'll hold my tongue because I'd really rather Marcia answer because I'm just going to be making stuff up. She's actually done a scenario, so.
I'm here. Hi, Marcia Parrott with Development Finance Initiative. In terms of the structure, I'm afraid I'll kick it to Terry. I'm not an attorney, but I agree with John that having sat in on calls with lots of attorneys, that this seems to be the viable structure for this project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Stallings, any other questions?
Not so much a question, but a comment around affordable housing. I guess me being fairly new to this project, it's been going on for a while. I didn't know that there was an affordable housing element to the project. And whenever I see 80%, 60% at the Raleigh-Cary MSA, I get concerned because I know a lot of what came out of the Affordable Housing Task Force work done by Central Pines last year, listed out what affordable actually means for Garner. And when you see housing listed at 80 and 60 at Raleigh's, which is about $132,000 a year, which is not Garner's AMI, it puts a lot of people in categories that they actually don't exist in, like police officers, as they listed, like elementary school teachers. Like the only one that actually is above and can afford it is registered nurses. And that's it. Plumbers fall below it. Firefighters fall below it as well too. So when it comes to affordable housing, looking at what's actually affordable in this community, I think we need to have a broader conversation about is it 50? Is it 45% of Raleigh-Cary's MSA, rather than being at 80, which is even listed in the report is unaffordable for Garner at Raleigh-Cary MSA. And that's just my only comment.
Mr. Mayor, if I may interject, I think doing the work on the Affordable Housing Task Force for 2 years, defining and giving definitions was a key component of that. And one of the outcomes from that was that in Garner, we were defining affordable as 50%, which again is a little different than broader. So again, that might reduce the number of units, but I think the real point is to make them accessible. We'd rather have fewer units that meet our definition. So I just want to point out that we had defined for Garner's purposes and wanted to clearly be articulating that to our developer and applicant friends that 50% of AMI was our local Garner definition of 50% of affordable housing.
Okay, we'll take those comments back, talk to the development team, and see if they have any thoughts on that.
Okay, if hearing no more questions and knowing that there are many more questions to be asked, and we do have some time, we need to bear down on these. Did we have another question, Mr. Singleton?
Yes, to clarify a couple of things. 134 spaces, 102 to them. How many spaces are we adding on Main Street? Was it 18, 12, 18? I can't remember.
38.
adding 38
Yes, we're adding 38
on Main Street.
on Main Street from
Start
where the
where the
angle
diagonal
parking
with the
all the way
trees
up to
are.
Montague.
It'll go all the way, angle parking, all the way to Montague.
Yes, sir.
38.
38.
So we'll be netting 38 and 34 spaces, so we'll be netting 72 spaces.
And the partial use of the other 102 at peak times
Right.
when we may need it for rec center or retail use and not for overnight residential.
Plus what's going on Randmill Road, back there.
Yes, correct.
Which is, it's the 40-something,
48.
right?
48.
48, so we're at about almost 120 now, over 120, okay.
And so in working with Mr. Triesenberg and others, when we were originally looking at this project, we said, look, how realistic is this to do? And with adding all of that parking, even with taking out the 102 part-time, everyone's analysis is that we're viable to be able to support the retail and the other uses in the area. And then we just need to work out the sort of the uniqueness of the permitting of the 102 that we talked about earlier.
Okay, and just to speak about what Mr. Stallings and Mr. Dillinger touched on, because they're using Raleigh's AMI at 135 roughly, 80% of that's $81,000. That's higher than the Garner median income.
Right.
So that's why I think if they could switch to, if they won't go below 60, if they could switch to 10% to 60% and 5% to 80, that's at least an improvement. But again, it's still above the median Garner household income.
Right. And I'll let Peter or Connor speak to it if they'd like to, but one of the things that they have talked about with us before is sort of the naturally occurring affordability of the design of their product. So I know it doesn't completely address all of your comments that have been made tonight, but Connor, Peter, would you like to make any follow-up comments from the questions you've heard about affordability and the way your projects are structured even before you made a commitment for the number of units?
I think that as I commented before, I'll stand by that, which is that this is truly what we do is try to design a certain type of unit and a size of unit so that our rents stay lower. That said, I want you to know that we're hearing you, and we will come back at the October meeting with specific numbers on the rents and specific numbers of units. I hear where you're going, and I empathize. We'll try to get there.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if no more questions, then we'll close that item out and move along to item number
Mr. Mayor, I
4.
just wanted to thank our guest. I know that Peter had a restriction on being able to travel with us tonight, so we had agreed for him to participate remotely. So I extended that same offer to Connor and Marcia, but I just want to thank them for being on remotely tonight and thank them for all the work they've been doing. The DFI team's been great over the last few months working with us on bringing this back to you. So thank you to both of the teams for being on tonight.
Yes, thank you.
We're grateful
Thank you.
for being able to do this over the phone. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter and Connor. Great team to work with. Okay, moving along to item, well, let's see. We usually take a brief recess at 7:30. I think we should do that now because we have at least 15, 20 minutes worth of work. Let's be back at 7:35, please, and we will move ahead with the rest of our agenda at that time. Recess till 7:35. from recess. Thanks for your patience there, that we have worked our way down to discussion item number 3, the zoning text amendment request having to do with codification, reformat, and minor edits. And our planning director, Mr. Jeff Triesenberg, is going to step us through this issue. Mr. Triesenberg.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Before I dive into that, I did just want to call attention to a memo that I believe you got earlier, either this week or late last week, about the zoning text amendment pipeline. We do have quite a few things that will be coming, and I just wanted to go ahead and highlight that real quickly for you so you kind of know what will be coming forward. Obviously, this recodification is very, very important and will certainly give us better means of managing everything that has to come after. But as you know, we do have a text amendment for funeral homes that is in the works currently. So that will actually be coming back to you very soon for a possible decision. Then we have, of course, the codification and minor edits that I'm going to introduce to you tonight. Next month, I was just talking with Mr. Singleton during the break. Legislative action has been hot and heavy here over the last couple of months. And so we are working on a package to bring forward to you at next month's work session to talk about some of the things that have been included in that legislation and how we will be looking to change and get our UDO into compliance, and also to seek from you some ideas on how maybe we tweak the ordinance while still staying in compliance, but maybe we want to take some slightly different approaches to certain topics. But then after that, we know that we have a list of requests that have been stated at different times by members of council. And so we definitely have that on the horizon, and we'll be reaching out to get more clarity on what other packages that council would like to see brought forward. And then we do have a couple of cases that are coming to us from specific entities outside from the public. We do have one from the billboard industry that is interested in talking to us about the possibility of electronic billboards. We even, I was just discussing with staff earlier yesterday, actually, potentially another one regarding accessory dwelling units. That one is not on your list yet. We're still kind of talking with those folks about what that might look like. But then we also do have, related to the funeral homes, the issue of coming back and addressing crematoriums somehow. And then, of course, we also have our data center moratorium, where we'll be coming back in the spring, most likely with recommendations about how to address that. And then, of course, when we finished up kind of our commercial batch, or our residential, batch of amendments related to the implementing the comprehensive plan, I did kind of throw out there a teaser that we would be definitely working on a batch of non-residential amendments aimed at better implementing Garner Forward. So again, just wanted to kind of put that together in a single document for you all so you could see what we are working on and kind of have going on in the background, and hopefully kind of help lay a little bit of the framework for why this recodification is such an important piece for us to get accomplished.
Okay. And we have time for some questions or focus areas here, and it would be our turn to start with Mr. Matthews if there's questions or comments.
Not right now.
Mr. Singleton?
No, I spoke with Mr. Triesenberg at the break about consideration about permitted zoning districts for data centers, and I'll send an email to him and copy everyone on that with just some thoughts.
Thank you. Very, very helpful. A good way to proceed on a detailed issue of that nature. Thank you. Mr. Stallings?
No question.
Mr. Dellinger?
Are we just talking about this, or are we talking about the whole thing?
Just this right now.
No questions on this.
Mr. Vance?
No questions.
You have some more for us?
Yes, I do. So without further ado, then I'll dig into a brief overview of the current request, which is for the codification, reformat, and minor edits to the UDO. And if you'll notice there's a preview of what's to come there with the little orange comma. That's been a favorite topic of discussion with the legal department. And so we've had a little bit of, tried to inject a little bit of humor into an otherwise dry subject. But the application is, again, coming from staff. This is Zoning Text Amendment 2603 to fix codification errors, improve the overall readability, management of the actual source document, which currently exists in a number of Microsoft Word files, to employ consistent use of punctuation throughout the document and other minor edits. So again, I'm just going to kind of highlight, group together kind of some of the 1,400 plus 1,500, whatever comments that you see in the PDF of the entire UDO. But the purpose is to, codify the previous 7 adopted amendment packages that we have had since we first adopted this version of the UDO into the overall ordinance. So that way it's all available in one document. Folks aren't having to look at what's existing in the original and then try to compare amendment packages to the original language and figure out what's effective. It would also include any additional amendments that would be adopted prior to this package. So a good example of that would probably be the funeral home amendments. So as that package moves forward, if approved, we will roll that into this package as well. Generally, we're trying to accomplish a shift in the writing style to more of a legal format. There's not a specific legal format that's really published, but there are, as I have come to appreciate, some general standards that legal professionals would prefer us to follow if at all possible. So one of those is to primarily when you're using serial kinds of phrases where you have 3 or more things that occur in a sentence, and sometimes when reviewing the UDO, you can get 2 or even 3 series of items that show up in a sentence. So I have encouraged my staff for us to embrace the use of the Oxford comma, which was not something that I was trained on in college, but I now have a new appreciation for. So it did help us kind of, it was remarkable, I will say, because we had 2 people who primarily on the consulting side were drafting the original document. And it was honestly about a 50-50 split of when that comma was used and when it wasn't. And in some cases, there were commas that were put in that separated something that was actually supposed to be together. So as you read through the comments in the document, you'll see there's a lot of commas added and a lot of commas removed. Just clearing up that use of punctuation to make sure that we are clearly conveying what items in the ordinance go together, which ones are separated, which ones are part of a larger list. Along with that, we've reduced the use of the semicolon, except in certain bulleted lists where it makes sense to use it as part of like completing a sentence structure, where each one of those items is one thing that you take into consideration as part of the whole list, and the last 2 items in the list will have an and behind it, usually when you're supposed to consider everything in the list. And then for parenthetical type expressions, again, in most manuals of writing, you would use the comma to set off a parenthetical expression, but because we're using that more prevalently now with employing the Oxford comma, sometimes it just made more sense to set off those parenthetical expressions either with parentheses or with what they call the M dash, which is the long dash. So again, it helps provide a little bit of a visual impact to say, hey, what's between this is really something that's adding clarity. Otherwise, it could be taken out, but you really want to still have it in there for clarity. So, punctuation lesson for the day.
Can I ask?
You sure may.
Go back. I have to ask the question. So we're relying more on parentheses with the end dash, but the quotation marks in there are just to point them out to us. We're not going to be going around doing this all the time.
Correct.
Thank you. I want to make sure. Because I know that's supposedly not the thing to do anymore. And I was thinking,
right,
to be sure they were on there just for pointing out these things. Thank you.
Yes.
But us older guys, can we get an English class refresher on all this?
I'm not claiming this is like 100% perfect to English class, but
just inquiring.
It's what that we're agreeing on with the legal department to kind of settle on. We are going to be developing, or we actually have started developing a style guide manual, so that whoever is maintaining this in the future will kind of have the rules that we're putting in place for how to amend it going forward.
And if I may add, punctuation does have legal significance in some cases. So,
yes.
Yes, I have brought him to my side. And I'll just say earlier we were editing, I think, this version of the UDO, and I was putting commas in and Jeff was taking the commas out as we were sharing the document.
Well, I'm glad y'all could work that out.
All right. So those are probably the two biggest purposes, but then there's a lot of other things that did show up at least a few times throughout the document. We did have some actual codification numbering errors in the document. The most egregious was actually in section 11.2 of the UDO. When you get down in the original document, you'll find that it goes from like 11.2.3 and then goes back to like 11.4, but you're actually in the same section. So somewhere in there, because this was not all in one document, it wasn't using the software's capability to do automatic numbering correctly. And so somebody manually overrode that, thinking that it was correct, and nobody caught that error because there was no automation kind of backing it up in the background to give you the red flag. So there were several of those. A lot of them were occurring in smaller portions of the UDO, where maybe somebody just missed a carriage return to start a new paragraph and start a new bulleted item. So there were just several examples of that needed to be fixed. And again, those are, if you read the comments on the side, you'll see we used wording like, codification error fixed and tried to describe it for you so you knew exactly what we did. Along with that, there were some cross-references. And again, Article 11, which is the environmental floodplain stormwater chapter, there are a lot of cross-references to that chapter. So several of them, many of them were incorrect and needed to be fixed. So those have been addressed. We also talked early on with legal about the status of commentary and how to use commentary and should we be using commentary. And so what we did is we went in and we looked at the commentary. If it was truly just commentary, we've taken it out. But if there was anything that was of a directive and spoke about regulation, we took that language and incorporated it in. So you will see some cases of that throughout the document as well. Then, of course, this pops up primarily due to our residential package where we changed how we categorized different residential uses. For example, we no longer really use the term duplex. Duplex is actually now wrapped up into a slightly larger category called house-scaled multifamily dwellings. They can be a duplex, they can also be a triplex or quadplex, up to, I believe it's 2,000 or 2,500 square feet of footprint. So in some places, we just never had identified that language to be updated. So there's several areas where you will see that we've replaced the outdated name of the use and incorporated the new name.
Mr. Triesenberg, would it be
Yes.
would it be helpful to talk about that right now, or would you like to go all the way through? I have
Either
questions
or.
about that.
Either or.
Council have a preference? Yeah, it caught the change in the body of the document caught my eye, and so I had to go back up and see that we actually had a definition for it. And how do I phrase my question? So you've got under specific uses 644, right? And you've got these multi-scaled, multifamily, house-scaled multifamily dwelling units, duplex, triplex, and quadplex, defined as 2 to 4 dwelling units in a structure not exceeding 2,500 square foot, blah, blah. And then you've got a townhouse, which is a townhouse, row home, paired house, defined as a single family attached dwelling in which 2 to 6 units share common sidewalls. And then it goes on to actually talk about units are purchased on a fee simple basis on small individual parcels of land, which is an interesting distinction because now we've got this overlap of townhomes with this multi-scale multifamily. And I'm curious as to what impact that has on what comes before us with regards to rentals or large parcels that are then not subdivided but sold. And then at the Planning Commission meeting for the 1010 Road Costco project, they had introduced a brand new term of townhome cottages that doesn't exist in our UDO, but they defined it conveniently for their own project. And so I don't really have a specific question other than there seems to be some weird overlap between house-scaled multifamily dwelling unit and townhomes. And there's some instances where house-scaled multifamily is referenced, but townhomes are not. And so I was just wondering if there's work doing another pass through the document. So what do you do if you have a 2 to 4 unit multifamily that, well, is that a townhome or is that a house-scaled multifamily? And if you pick and choose one over the other, are there specific benefits or lack of benefits in doing that? So I think I just wanted to, since it was up here, kind of look and see where the overlap is and is not, because there are certain things for townhomes and certain ones for, and it jumped out to me even more because of this townhouse cottage concept that they didn't even really know what that was either. So I'm trying to reconcile this new thing with what we have, and you start to make these changes. So I just elevate that to sort of go through the document again and check where those two things are mentioned and making sure, because right now there's not really a distinction other than the fee simple language. And I don't necessarily know what all the implications for that are, but it'd be helpful if you and staff could kind of break that down and maybe look at past examples. This is an example of the house-scaled multifamily. These are townhomes. These are either or, and that kind of thing. That'd be helpful, at least for me.
Sure.
Because we've also said we don't want any more townhomes.
Right.
So somebody's like, well, this isn't a townhome. This is house-scaled multifamily. Right. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't say I didn't like that. Anyway, that's my comment / question.
No, that's a great comment. When we were going through the residential package earlier, we kind of had the previous way we broke it down had some of those same things, and so we tried to make it a little clearer. But I get why it's still probably difficult to distinguish between the two. But you hit the nail on the head, kind of with the parcel status, ownership status. That's really the crux of it. Anything that's multifamily is going to be on a single common lot. Everything else is on its own lot. But we'll go back. Yeah, definitely. That'll be a good exercise for us to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else off the cuff? Okay. One of the primary edits that we made in talking with Ms. Jones, there was some language in the UDO about the legal department reviewing private HOA documents. She had brought that up to me as something that was a hot topic of discussion amongst municipal attorneys, and recommended that we kind of clarify that language, that if there was going to be any review, or, if in some cases for us in planning, it's important to know that they've at least drafted and are going to record those documents, just to make it clear that any of that kind of work would be done by us in the planning department, but that really review of their private covenants was not really something that we want to be involved in. So there are some minor edits that are addressed to that, just to clear up what truly needs to be looked at, and what does not.
Mr. Triesenberg.
Yes.
That caught my eye as well. And the other one in sort of relation to that is in section 1.4, interpretation. And the language says, short version, the planning director is responsible for the ultimate interpretation, but there's not a requirement that legal be a part of that process. And I'm wondering, with the new legislative change that makes these decisions precedent setting, if that might be language we want to include in that interpretation, that the planning director in consultation with the legal department. I just think because the repercussions are so potentially far-reaching, it might be helpful to have that in writing. I'm sure you do that already.
Yes.
But it'd be nice to have it in writing. You won't be here forever, so you know, one day.
Yes.
So it jumped out, those two things, the two legal pieces. And all right, thank you.
Yeah, I felt like there was something in there that said that we at least provide a copy to it, but your point's well taken that that's kind of almost an afterthought, and making it more of, because we do exactly that, making it more consultative before we.
And codifying it,
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
The next bullet, again, kind of is somewhat similar to, the codification errors or numbering errors. In some cases, the consultant, you use a title for the paragraph or the section, and then follow it with a few sentences of introduction. And there were just some places where they failed to make that distinction, and the title just ran right into the sentences that were to follow. So we've corrected that. We've also standardized the use of the terms article. So article is all the chapters. Sections are the first layering of numbering underneath that. Subsections under that. So those will always be your headings that you'll see in blue in the document. And then everything else that falls below that, like A1, A1A, those will just be referred to as paragraphs. We also standardized the naming and numbering of tables and figures. So we broke those down into two different items, and there were several that just didn't have a number and didn't have a title. So we gave them a number and a title, because many times they actually are cross-referenced. So it helped us make the cross-references more clear for the user as well. We also went back and verified when we were introducing acronyms and making sure that they were spelled out the first time. And in some cases, particularly in the definitions chapter, we included both, acknowledging that some people may go there first. There was a lot of differences in what was capitalized in terms of proper nouns and the use of hyphens within words. So we settled early on, or at least I thought we did, on certain things like non-residential would just be one word because we used it so often. So there were a few cases where the hyphen was still showing up between non and residential. So when you search for it, you wouldn't find it. So again, standardizing spelling and capitalization. There were several instances where there was just a missing word, incomplete phrases and sentences. So again, using our interpretive authority, we kind of just said, hey, we really need to insert this word here to make this make sense. Again, some occasional edits to improve clarity and or readability. I recall there being one area where one word was used like 3 times in the same sentence. So we changed one of those to give it a little more clarity and not quite be so repetitive. We also went down and checked things like subject-verb agreement, things plural versus singular, a lot of mismatches there, and other miscellaneous items. So I'd just like to wrap up by saying I'd like to give a special thanks to Cassidy Charles, our Planner 1 on Nick's side of the house. She was largely the person responsible for transferring the entire ordinance from multiple Microsoft Word files into one. It is doable. You can have 300 some odd pages in Word and it will not crash. Special thanks also to all my staff for identifying and submitting issues over the last 3-4 years. You can see it was a long list to cover. As I noted earlier, we are developing a style guide that will be very helpful. And we will also be maintaining a digital master copy with routine and current interpretive notes that will help us internally just keep track of day-to-day interpretations that are being made and how to apply the UDO. Each version, we're also applying a versioning number. So every time we adopt a new package, we're going to start at 4.0. We kind of, through Garner's history, we've had kind of 3 previous big versions of the UDO. So this one's going to be 4.0. And every time we adopt a new amendment package, it'll become 4.1, 4.2, and we will post those on the website with their effective dates. That way, when folks are going back and they need to know which version of the UDO applied to my application, they can find it. So our recommended motion, hopefully tonight, is to direct staff to advertise a public hearing for September 15th. And my parting comment is just that, again, I don't want this, it's a lot of work. It may seem at first blush like maybe it's not a whole lot of benefit, but I cannot underestimate just how much this will help everybody, from you all as elected officials to us as staff and to the general public. It's important for us. One of our core values that we've adopted in the planning department is reliability. We are committed to being a reliable resource for the community, and this will help us find those answers to their questions efficiently, consistently, and you'll notice behind consistently is the Oxford comma, and accurately. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Man, I can't thank you enough for the work that you and your staff have done to bring consistency and accuracy. In some ways, it's mind-numbing for us, but I know you guys love it and get it right. But we do appreciate it. We do need to know the difference between a duplex and a whatever multi-family blah, blah, you know. But we need to do that. We may not need to know exactly all the parts of the Congress Library decimal system that they use, but we really appreciate what you're doing. Let us know when we need to take a tutorial to get in step with the modern age and the correct terminology. Having said that, thank you. Let us know what we need to do. We'll see it again for actual implementation, I think. And in the meantime, don't hesitate to ask the questions that were being asked now. How do we learn to replace the word duplex with the word that's more accurate these days? And how do we help you implement these changes? Are there any other questions or comments from council members on this item?
I would just like to say to the staff, I tell you, this is a lot of work to do, to go sentence by sentence to make sure everything is falling into place. And my hat's off to you. Yes, it's really a lot of work to make the definition. I'm smiling to myself when I'm thinking about a time when a person was arguing what does is mean in this in particular context. So it's like, wow. So now we're looking at this in the details that we're looking at, and again, it's a tremendous amount of effort and time that goes into this, and you're appreciated for the efforts that you put forth.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I just want to commend you all for making the effort and time to do it all at once rather than sort of piecemeal. Oh, I found it over here. That takes a lot of time away from other things, but a lot of focus and a lot of folks working, and it's good to do it now when all this is coming at you, so you're not, contradicting, and it's clean. So we appreciate all that hard work you guys have done to get the tidiest version possible as we start making these changes. So thank you.
Thank you for your hard work. This is our UDO. We got to make sure that we have it right. This is the document that when people come in and they want to develop things, they're gonna go to first. I mean, as we were talking about during the break, we have advisory documents, but this is the primary governing document when it comes to development. So we definitely have to make sure that it's right. So thank you for your hard work. Like Councilman Vance said, it's pretty, it's a lot that goes into it line by line, but it seems like we're on the right track. So thank you.
Thank you.
Some of the screens you showed us, I was having a flashback to senior high, junior high English, when how to do this and how to do that, and the teacher would do it on the overhead screen or overhead projector. Some of you young folks don't know what that was, but anyway, we didn't have these, and they will write it out, but I know you want it to be correct, and that's what you're doing is while you're updating some of the language, you're correcting all the punctuation based off the fact that the attorney has stated that some of this stuff is important for legal documentation. So thank y'all for doing this.
Thank you for all the hard work. Now you guys need to come up with a software program that would automatically insert a lot of this. Turn that over to engineering. They could probably.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that moves us along to item E on our agenda, which is updates to council. And item number 1 is manager reports. Ms. Miller.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of council. First item under manager reports this evening is your monthly development activity map update. And Mr. Triesenberg is going to stay at the podium and review what's been added to the activity map. So Mr. Triesenberg.
Yes, all right. And we have 3 items. Again, these are all site plans, so all being reviewed and potentially approved at the administrative level for compliance with the UDO. So the first one we have is entitled the CAP redevelopment. CAP stands for Capital Area Preservation. Capital Area Preservation is working with the owners of, and I'm going to forget the name of the proper name of the house, but Auburn Knightdale Road in the old Auburn community, adjacent to the railroad tracks. So is that historic house that sat just off from the old driving range. There is a developer who is looking at converting that to non-residential use. The process for doing that will be heavily influenced by preservation rules because it is on the National Register, and so they are working with the State Historic Preservation Office to make sure that they will be complying with all of their rules, and then we will be applying applicable portions of our UDO and also with the building code, trying to marry those 2 things together. Because it is a historic property, they do have the right to certain exemptions, primarily within the building code. But it even kind of goes to even how you design your sidewalks, how you design the edge of the pavement. The preference there from the preservation side, of course, is to keep more of that rural look, whereas we tend to try to upgrade things to more of an urban standard. So there will be some compromises probably and give and take in that, but ultimately their goal is to keep it on the historic register and to do the upfit according to their guidelines.
You said non-residential use?
Correct. Yeah, most likely some kind of office use. All right. The second project is the Morrison Associates warehouse expansion. So I'm sure most of you are very well aware of the new office building that Morrison Associates has been building on their property. here on Morris Drive and 70. They are now coming back with a warehouse expansion on their existing parcel. So if this will load, there we go. Looking at an extension here in the back, it will be something that's not particularly visible from Highway 70, but they are removing some of their kind of outdoor maneuverability space, I guess, for loading and unloading, and actually bringing more of it in-house under the roof structure. So again, it will be reviewed by staff to meet all requirements applicable in this case from the UDO. And then lastly, town-sponsored project, the Peacock Dam breach. Not really a lot to show on that, but we will be breaching the dam and reestablishing the flow of water and seeing where that goes to. So primarily just a small grading exercise, but that is currently in review by staff as well. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Question on the dam breach. After it's breached, what sort of the protocol for observing the impacts of that downstream and for the site itself?
Sure. I'm going to ask Leah to come up and address that one.
Good evening. So we have, before we started the design of the breach, we did do modeling to look at the impacts downstream. It's a unique situation out there because the streams have basically routed themselves around the area that the dam is impounding at this point. So other than the impact of the water directly being drawn down from the breach of the dam itself, there will be very little change in the amount of water being sent directly downstream because most water is bypassing the dam in the impoundment area at this time anyway. And so we'll just have to make sure that it's drawn down slowly enough to not increase levels downstream dramatically. But after the fact, that won't change a whole lot. Similar to what we had at the Meadowbrook Park Dam, once it's breached, we'll have to have a drying period time to see what pops up, right? So usually you have some development of wetlands and things like that. We'll have those delineated so that we know what area is usable and is protected, to see what evolves there.
So the rerouted streams, you anticipate them to continue to naturally be rerouted, and this is just going to be a new sort of flow?
Probably, yeah. So for the most part, what the impoundment area of the dam is holding is just runoff from adjacent areas. When you have rain, what flows directly into that? There's not a direct stream flow that's being dammed by that structure at this point. So it's a much less significant amount of water than there used to be impounded behind that dam.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So there are not any perennial streams, any natural flowing streams going to that location now?
They're directly adjacent to it, but they're not flowing directly through that, through the pond that the dam is creating. So it's not in line with the streams.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if there are no other questions, thank you, Mr. Triesenberg. Next item under manager reports is the pending agenda for your September meetings. As always, council, I'll remind you that we've penciled in items for your September meetings, but it's a work in progress. And so some things may move around. There's a few things we've even talked about this evening that may move around based on what was included in your agenda packet. But looking ahead to September 1st, your first meeting in September, several items under consent, including voluntary annexation hearing for 1306 Creech Road homes. Also, your minutes are coming back from your July meeting. And then the second vote on both Chapter 11 ordinance and Chapter 18 ordinance will also be coming back as part of your consent agenda. Under public hearings, we have a voluntary annexation for Timber Thompson Commercial. We'll also be bringing back for the public hearing the fire protection ordinance amendments that were discussed previously, as well as the traffic control ordinance amendments as well. In addition to that, as requested under new old business for your meeting on September 1st, the delegation of authority item that Attorney Jones has been working on will come back for council as well. Looking ahead to your second meeting in September, September 15th, we have several items under consent agenda right now. The first one is the funding agreement contract with the county for the grant that we are receiving for the housing plan that you've learned more about when we provided our proposal update in July. We also have some budget amendments coming back as we finalize the budgets for the Rand Mill Road improvement projects, as well as the White Deer improvement project, specifically the splash pad project. Under public hearings, we have a Tier 2 conditional rezoning for Sencar Properties zoning amendment, Enclave at Meadowbrook, a Tier 2 conditional rezoning request for Tharrington Road. We heard a little bit about that earlier today during your special meeting with GDC. And then we'll be having the hearing on the reformatting, minor edits and codification updates that Mr. Triesenberg just walked you through in terms of the UDO. Looking under new and old business, there's a Tier 1 conditional rezoning request for 7615 1010 Road. Also coming back to you, zoning text amendment for funeral homes and neighborhood mixed-use district. The Downtown Opportunity Site Master Plan Development Agreement, we had targeted the 15th, but as Mr. Hodges mentioned, we're going to be moving that to your first meeting in October. Also, we are still working on the Benson Utility Extension Agreement and Interlocal Agreement, so we're hoping to be able to bring that back to you at your September 15th meeting. And then also coming to you for update is the Meadowbrook Park Master Plan update for continued discussion. And then you'll have your normal talk of the town reports under manager reports. Your final meeting, your work session, is scheduled for September 29th. You will have your development previews scheduled before. Mr. Triesenberg and his team will be bringing back more updates regarding legislative compliance to the UDO. And then council had requested, based on feedback and discussion on policy objectives and priorities and some strategic planning work that we're doing, coming back and having a discussion about prioritizing council requests and determining priorities for the fall. So we'll be coming back with that discussion as well for council to give some feedback and direction. And then we have our standard reports during the work session as well, the development activity map, as well as your October pending reports. So that's what we have now. As always, things could move around or change a little bit as we continue to develop the agendas for September, but wanted to give council a heads up of the things that we anticipate. Happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, any questions?
I have a question, well, a comment, speaking on the council policy objectives and kind of just for public transparency and kind of process that coming to council over the course of doing the budget and the conversations on policy in the spring. Council was provided on July 19th with sort of a distillation of some of these policy ideas for feedback, and we reviewed those with the town manager and town attorney on August 5th. And I want to say to town manager and town attorney, a lot of the stuff is happening and ongoing and in process. So we're really excited about that. And so just kind of, again, awareness for the public that around there are three main domains for some of these policy objectives. One is affordable housing, the other is fiscal stewardship, and the other is development. On affordable housing, we're looking at the funding model that we want to implement at some point in the future, near future. The Affordable Housing Advisory Board is still ongoing, and that work's continued. Also look at the impacts of the 21st Century Road and Housing Act and the implications it may have on our UDO, so we're already having those conversations. On the fiscal stewardship side, seeing what the threshold is for items to come as new and old business versus consent agenda. And then work that has been going for a while, fiscal impacts of projects and revenue modeling. Blue Ridge loophole comes up all the time, still on our radar, and staff is working on, finding ways to mitigate that. We've had a lot of success working with applicants and developers so far, working with legal to get some compliance with that. On the budget side, conversation is ongoing with creating a standalone CIP document over the next couple of years to give the public and council better insight and clarity on our scope of need. And then on the budget side, working with staff to have council participation sometime in the fall, early in the budget cycle, so that we can have conversations around last year's closeout and the upcoming year. And then kind of Mr. Triesenberg was up here talking about all these incorporations of UDO changes. And then lastly, working on tier 1 and tier 2 conditional rezonings and ways that we can address those in a formal way, but also in an informal way to make sure our development partners understand their options when they're coming to council. So I just wanted to let that know that we're talking about it in September, but there's a lot of work that's already happened, which is good. And we're making really good progress. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And to your point, Mr. Dellinger, yes, although we're talking about how we're organizing, prioritizing some of these topics, a lot of this work is happening now where we're planning towards it. So we want to make sure we don't lose the momentum and energy around a lot of the work and priorities council has established. I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
You have a question? Kind of working down this way. Ray, any questions?
Sure.
That is everything for the manager reports this evening.
Okay. And I believe that brings us to the attorney reports,
No report this evening.
which brings us along to the council reports. Let's start with Mr. Vance. Any council report items?
No report.
Mr.
Dellinger? Just 2 items. I had a question for Mr. Assistant Manager Poole on the AI timeline and how that work is going.
So we're in a final draft of our AI guidebook. We work with our strategic initiatives department, our legal department, and our AI task force. So we have a final document. We have a couple of decision points to present to the HR director and the manager for just some direction on generative AI platforms and those things. But the skeleton of the manual and guidelines are done, and we're hoping to have the draft document completed in September.
Is the plan to bring that draft to council for feedback?
We can do that.
I'd like to, just again for clarity and public transparency. The only other comment was, I think we had a really good meeting with GDC this afternoon. A lot of really good conversation. It's really great to talk directly with the board members and see that there's a lot more common ground than has appeared in the past several months. So I think we made really good progress. I think it was really great too that there's sort of an enthusiasm for grant seeking and seeing what we can do with GDC to sort of take it to the next level as it's evolved over the years. So it was a really good meeting this afternoon. Really good meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Stallings?
No report tonight.
Mr. Singleton?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Matthews?
Nothing.
And that brings us along to the question of a closed session, but it looks like perhaps that need has been filled.
That's correct. There's no need for a closed session tonight.
Okay, excellent. Well, that covers the agenda items this evening. If there's nothing else we need to discuss, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Stallings, second by Mr. Vance. All in favor of adjourn, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? We are adjourned. Another good evening's work. Thank you all. Thank you all.